I'm reacting to the story over the weekend that Sherrone deleted 52 text messages from Connor Stallions, and we await the word on what is in those messages, and there is them surely going to be released at sometime here soon. And by all accounts, Michigan wants them released because they say there's no tie-in between Sherrone and any sign stealing. But we'll await that evidence and see what comes out of it. With that said, this morning, ESPN, there was Paul Feinbaum and Pete Thamel. We'll start with Paul Feinbaum. Was asked how big of a deal he thought this was, this latest layer in the story, and here's what he said this morning on Get Up. So what's interesting about that is I wonder how Michigan fans feel about it. First of all, you're probably surprised that Feinbaum said that. But because Feinbaum throughout this entire thing has not said anything like that in any way that was, not salacious when it comes to this story. But do fans want Michigan to fight this tooth and nail? I've talked to people on the Michigan side that are in the fight it camp, and people are on the negotiate a solution and move on camp. And the solution might include some punishment. I don't know how fans feel about it. I tend to be a negotiate solutions and move on, but I'm not a crisis management guy. That's always been my thought on how you should handle these things.
Well, I imagine that there's perhaps a large group of people that say just protect the national championship. And if Feinbaum says that all lawyers say that then they're not going to lose a national championship because of what they said at the time that they want it fair and square or whatever the phrasing was. I think because there was punishment in the immediate wake of the discovery of this, right? Mm-hmm. So once that happened, every team was on notice, I guess, and then you move on from that point in the season. They went out and won their toughest games of the season and end up winning the national championship. So it's at that point, it feels like from, whatever it was, week 4 or week 5 on, that they feel like everything's above ground or above board, that you can't get them for anything like that, then so be it. So you're protecting the championship. But you can't ignore what happened prior to that. I don't think they're going to lose a national championship. I don't think that's going to happen at all. And isn't that the one thing you're protecting?
Well, I don't think you want postseason bans or NCAA. You don't want playoff bans, but there's question about whether the NCAA can even do that.
I was going to say, does it even seem? I don't. This doesn't seem like something that would push them in that direction yet, unless there's a mountain of evidence that would suggest otherwise. But right now, it doesn't seem like that's coming out. Like they're not holding back and saying, "Oh, we got wait till you see what we got over here." You're not going to believe it.
Right.
It doesn't seem like that's the case. It's just kind of like, almost like a clerical thing. Let's just move along.
Well, it's a what Moore did is a procedural violation, and it should be taken seriously. But if the text message, we're going to have to use that a lot. If the text messages clear him of knowing what Connor Stallions was up to, then yeah, you're right. But one of the first champ and chump votes will come in. Champ of the weekend, Scotty Scheffler. Chump Michigan football. The sooner you own up to it, the sooner you can move on. Quit delaying the inevitable. That's where I wonder where fans are. Is do you just say, okay, NCAA, let's negotiate a punishment, or Feinbaum there suggesting that they could lawyer up and win this thing, and I don't know. Well, that makes it long and protracted. And
was he suggesting they could lawyer up and win this thing if it comes to them having to vacate the national championship? That's what I took it. Now, what could happen is that because of the Stallion stuff, because it wasn't a one-off. I mean, this was going on over a couple of years. And if they have that evidence to show it, what could happen is that they may have to vacate wins from prior seasons. And though that's painful, in the end, time goes by, people don't care anymore because you played the games, you saw them win, and it doesn't matter what somebody says after the fact, even though initially it's going to hurt if that's the case, if they have to go back and vacate prior wins.
All right, so Pete Damo was on the story, was asked what he thinks going to come out of this, and here's what he said this morning on Get Up. And that brings us back to that question. If you're a Michigan fan, do you just say, take the suspension?
Depends how long. Is it going to affect the Texas game? Or is it just going to be for Fresno?
He said a short suspension. Whether it affects the Texas game or not, to me, is irrelevant. If it's a short suspension, do you just take it in an effort to move on from this? Well, I know it, Matt, because look, I've seen the gamut here from fans, all right, of what they want Michigan to do. I'm a get to the end of it quickly guy, always have been. That means I'm more inclined to say take the suspension, but I'm not a crisis management expert. I do know this. There was a rollover with a Ford Explorer that happened in a January of whatever year it was, 92. And it felt like it was 1998 before that story was done. And it hung over the program forever. So in retrospection, they have done something there to try and expedite that process. And these are challenging issues where there's a lot of smart people at U of M that can make these decisions. But do fans want to see them just accept a suspension or fight it more? So I don't know. That's the crux of the issue I see for Michigan fans is how do you want them to approach it? And I mean, there's some people might say just take your medicine because you deserve it.
Well, I mean, obviously everybody has to find out what they're dealing with first.
Yep.
And what is the evidence? What is the suggested punishment before you can really kind of react on that? But I mean, if it is a modest 1-game suspension, I don't think anybody would have an issue with that, or not too many people would have an issue with that. If it goes beyond that, if you get into that second game, which is Texas's second game, right?
Yeah.
Then I think some fans would be like, ooh, that could hurt. I understand. I mean, I know your feelings. We've done this show together for over 17 years. I know exactly how you feel about this stuff, and you want to get it out of the way, but I think there's a lot of people that might have an issue if this is something you could fight and avoid not having to sit out for the second game against Texas.
Well, Michigan fans, how do you feel?